You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He is Brad Logan from Logan Digital Media, inside the Rebels. You might catch him in a high school game across North Mississippi, all of that good stuff. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really well. You know, we talked a little bit in pre-production here, and this is setting up to be, as you and your audience knows, the best football season, obviously in our lifetime, and I think a lot of other people's lifetimes as well, at least those that are on earth with us. And I think, you know, looking back at what Ole Miss has the capability of doing, the schedule sets up really nice. And when you can get commitments, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, Jacoby Hobson out of Lake Cormorant High School in Mississippi, who's also is at the same high school as Cam Franklin, who's also at the high school of the other Hobson, who I think is a junior, is going to be a very much coveted prospect that Ole Miss is already in on him. When you get those type players in, not only from Mississippi, but some of the best players in the country, that lends itself to put a product on the field that can play for championships, and that's exactly what Ole Miss is positioning itself for.
Listen, when you deal with Lane Kiffin and roster building, I've said for the last 3 years, this was the most talented roster that Ole Miss has had in my lifetime, and this is the most talented roster that maybe anybody has seen in anybody's lifetime at Ole Miss. And players are coming back. They're playing up this last dance thing, this Michael Jordan come back for one last go through. Jackson Dart came up with that because it literally is his last dance. But people want to follow this kid, and they are using that and marketing it very well in the transfer portal. And you have somebody like Henry Parrish Jr. coming back on board, coming back to Ole Miss. I've been saying for the better part of the last 3 months that Ole Miss needed a Henry Parrish type running back. Well, who better than Henry Parrish to do that?
And for people watching and listening, this is not a situation for that Henry Parrish is like, you know, it was going okay at Miami. I'll go back and finish my career at Ole Miss, and maybe I'll get a chance to play. This is a situation to where the Grove Collective and Walker Jones had to work some things out to get Henry Parrish back to Oxford. Obviously, there's a familiarity there playing for Ole Miss. Kevin Smith, his former running back coach, is here at Ole Miss. So it's a situation to sure it works out, but look at what he was been able to do. As the stats show it perfectly, 625 on the ground, 6 touchdowns in a limited role last year for Miami in 100 carries. He is a terrific running back and someone that now that he's coming back, Stephen, I don't think Ole Miss fans are near as upset about the fact that Ulysses Bentley, we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show, how he's injury prone. Now, all of a sudden, you've got Parrish, you've got Bentley, you've got Kedrick Riscano, and then you've got Logan Diggs, who I'm still not sure if he'll make it this year. If he does, it'll be the back half of the schedule. Then you've got an injury-prone Ulysses Bentley. Things look much better now. And Stephen, you're probably about to say what I'm about to say. I don't think they're finished in the running back room.
I don't.
I think there's an opportunity to bring there's someone visiting right now, but I do think there's an opportunity to add one more running back. And people think, how in the world are you going to add this many? Well, look at the position. Look at how difficult it is to keep someone healthy throughout the season. I just think this is a team that needs the depth at running back, and this is a position I think Ole Miss is going to go after.
Yeah, I think Lane Kiffin is the type person that when this offense is running well, he would prefer to have 3 running backs getting 10 carries apiece. That's the way he would want to distribute carries. And Ole Miss got a commitment from Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, also from New Mexico, the New Mexico Lobo. This is a guy that had 190 carries, 1,190 yards, 17 touchdowns for the Lobos, including back-to-back 200-yard games at the end of the year. It really worked out. This is another example of what we just talked about, of Lane Kiffin doing to the running back room this year what he did to the quarterback room a year ago.
And this is a situation where this is another workhorse. This is a running back that was incredibly successful at New Mexico. You just saw the stats, number of touchdowns, ran the ball very efficiently for New Mexico. And here's the thing: is when you have those type running backs with Crosby, Merritt, you have Parrish Jr. coming back, you've got Ulysses Bentley. Those are three running backs that can play anywhere in the country. They've got the stats to back them up. Now Ole Miss has those three running backs on the roster. Oh, by the way, you've got Kedrick Riscano out there that's going to be looking for playing time. And I think there's an opportunity to bring in another back to get a more of a bruising back. Trent Howland is definitely a name. He's more of a bruiser. He is we see we see the comps to Snoop Connor, someone that you need to get that 1 or 2 yards. And Howland 75 carries, 354, and had the 2 scores. So he definitely might be someone could be that bruising back. We're looking at a running back room akin to the 21 season. And I think now, looking that you're having all the pieces in place to make the run, running back was obviously a room that Ole Miss needed to work on. And we thought offensive line was going to be a place where Ole Miss might have some transfers. So far, Stephen, we haven't seen that. We've seen a very close room in that offensive line room, and so far, no one of significance has entered the portal.
Yeah, if we make it to this time next week and nobody has entered the transfer portal and the roster is settled, this time next week the roster is settled as far as players leaving. If that happens, we can start talking SEC title, national title, playoff. All of that stuff can really happen because you will know exactly what could happen. Because at any point in the next week, and this is just the sad truth, is a bomb could drop. A player that you were counting on could disappear. So we do have to survive that as well.
Yeah, there's a little bit of injuries to work through. We talked about Logan Diggs at running back. Princely Human Leland, the transfer out of Florida, has had a bit of an injury issue that he's going to have to work through. He's definitely someone that's a day one starter. There's been scuttle that Tyler Barron could come back. I've been told that is not as likely as they thought a couple of weeks ago. Louisville appears to be, digging his claws in, so Barron may not be someone that comes in. But you look at the depth across that defensive front, Stephen, and it's as deep as Ole Miss has had maybe in the history of the program. I think you can look back, and I agree with Richard Cross of Sports Talk when I saw a clip on Twitter/X when he said maybe the best, defensive line in the history of the program, unless you talk about that 93 team. And I agree with Richard. You talk about Norman Hand and Tim Bowens and some of those players. Yeah, they were really good back then. But I really think, on paper, this team is as good or better than that team. And I think, what Pete Golding has been able to do through not only the transfer portal, but high school recruiting. We saw, and we talked about it a moment ago, we'll talk about it at the end of the program about Jacoby Hobson, the 4-star 2025 safety out of Lake Comrade High School in Mississippi. That's just one place in Mississippi that Ole Miss has dug in. Look, Nick Nestor does a great job there, the head coach for Lake Comrade, but he's not steering players to Ole Miss, Stephen. Ole Miss is recruiting the heck out of Lake Comrade, and now Cam Franklin is on social channels saying, "Come to the SIP," and using all the euphemisms that Ole Miss is got out there now. Hobson's selling all of his teammates to come follow him to Ole Miss. So this is a situation where Nick Nestor and that staff are getting all of his players college ready. But the creme de la creme of that team is going to Oxford right now. And that's just a testament to the recruiting prowess of Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, and, of course, Pete Golding, because right now it's all about the defensive side of the ball when it comes to Lake Comrade. And we'll talk about Mississippi recruiting in a moment, but I've got some thoughts on that as well.
Yes, we're going to talk about that in just a second. But right now, I do want to let everybody know, thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen. We'll talk about Jacoby Hobson and the high school recruiting element that has kind of fallen on the back seat a little bit, comes back to the forefront. But first, I want to tell you about Gametime. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, with making getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Last night I was in St. Petersburg, Florida for the Detroit Tigers and the Tampa Bay Rays. I wanted to see that sweet left-handed swing. Everybody's heard me talk about that. I got to see that in the game, and I used the seat view tactic, I guess you can say, in the Gametime app to where I can see the seat before I buy. They have the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Guys, I need you to all listen up for this huge announcement. I've been tracking the leaderboards every day, keeping my eye on the score and putting my heart into it. And I'm super pumped to announce I'm finally on top. That's right. Obviously, I'm talking about the hit mobile game Monopoly Go. You probably heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great mobile twist on classic Monopoly, and you can play it anywhere, anytime. Explore hundreds of Monopoly boards from Las Vegas to Camelot to the moon, all while raking in a huge fortune. Charge rental iconic properties just like Monopoly. You can charge your friends rent. That's awesome. Or you can go after their Monopoly money by pulling bank heist and taking a wrecking ball to their landmarks. But my favorite part is the leaderboards where you can see who's a Monopoly tycoon and who's gone bankrupt. So go get yourself on the charts. Download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store and Google Play. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis on news and opinions, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Brad, let's move over to the high school side a little bit. I know you have to get out of here in a minute, but Jacoby Hobson, you talked about him leading into the break. This is a player that I think he is similar to Suntarine Perkins as far as his profile, but he projects more to the back half of the defense where Suntarine Perkins projected to the front half of the defense. Very athletic player, somebody that you can count on, and an excellent get for Pete Golding and the Ole Miss defense.
Yeah, and the comp for him, as you and I already talked about, is Tony Connor, the talented safety defensive back out of Batesville, Mississippi, played at South Panola and was a fantastic player for this Ole Miss team a couple of years ago. And, you know, just go back to what Ole Miss is doing in the state of Mississippi. And once again, this is just kind of what I think. I think not necessarily they're handpicking Mississippi, but I think Ole Miss has a larger picture when it comes to recruiting the country. I think they're going after the top players, regardless of where they're from, with an emphasis on the state of Mississippi. I think Lane Kiffin kind of got a little bit of a bad rap when he first took the job back in 2020 by not recruiting the state of Mississippi and did not utilize those inroads that have been created there by Matt Luke. But I think what he was been able to do with Pete Golding, with Kevin Bolden, has done a great job. You know, Kelvin played at Southern Miss and still has those inroads in recruiting, and just the focus on Mississippi and focusing on that top end talent. You know, AK Deer was a position that Ole Miss was really a running back's a position Ole Miss wanted to target in the high school ranks, and they were able to get a commitment from him. And, you know, anytime you can get a big time player like Jacoby Hobson, you go ahead and get that commitment as soon as you can. Mississippi State, they're going to show up a lot in Mississippi because there is a ton of talent in Mississippi. And once again, you have to be careful about how you say things, but I think Ole Miss is just kind of focusing in on the positions that they need in the high school ranks, and therefore that's going to leave a lot of other programs an opportunity to come in. There's an offensive lineman out of Laurel that is committed to LSU. Tyler Lockhart, I believe, the linebacker out of Winona, has committed to Mississippi State. And then Mississippi State got another commitment from a player out of Velma Jackson, another player that's ranked pretty high. I think the only player out there that Ole Miss, you know, we'll see what happens with Otis, Kevin Otis out of, I think it's Kevin, out of Hattiesburg.
Yeah.
the defensive lineman, and then of course the number one player in the state, Caleb Cunningham. And Ole Miss is recruiting its tail off with him, which I think Auburn's going to be a big
Andrew
player with
Maddox
him.
too.
Andrew Maddox, and with Andrew's brother at quarterback, I expect a commitment to be imminent from him. Judging by the people I spoke to at the spring game, they feel very comfortable. They being non-Ole Miss people, that Andrew will be an Ole Miss Rebel. I think that commitment is sooner rather than later. And then, of course, Caleb Cunningham. We've talked about him. Auburn's going to be a big player for him. Mississippi State's going to be in the picture, but Ole Miss is right there for a signature for Caleb Cunningham, regardless of what any other media have to say about it.
Yes, this is where we drop a bomb on everybody before I let you go, Brad. We're just right on that at the end. We're going to drop one a little bit. Trent Howland is visiting on today. I do think that Ole Miss is going to sign another running back. I do think it's going to be a big back running back, but it's not necessarily going to be Trent Howland. I think we're not going to name names. We're just going to say, be on the lookout for that profile. How about that? We'll say that the running back profile of the big back, the thumper, look for Ole Miss to be active in that market as this continues.
I completely agree. May not be Howland, but it's going to be someone of the Snoop Connor, body type, the bruiser that can come in on the goal line situations, and someone that you need a yard or two, and a blocking back if Ole Miss wants to get in the I formation or anything like that. We haven't seen that very much out of Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, your age is showing there now.
Yeah,
if you break out an I formation.
Yeah. But honestly, if you have a situation where you want to run split backs or anything like that, you needed someone to lead block. Maybe not be something Ole Miss does a lot, but I do think we're going to be looking for one more running back to pop for Ole Miss of the body type of a Snoop Connor.
Thanks again for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day. Brad Logan from numerous sites. We're going to go Logan Digital Media and Inside the Rebels for today. What do you got going on this week, buddy?
Well, I just had a meeting with our producer out of WFCA, and we're kind of going through some things. And I really enjoy doing the high school football scoreboard show, because all of the people I've been able to meet through the years, the football coaches, and we have a great show on WFCA, which covers a large portion of the state of Mississippi. It's 107.9, the high school football scoreboard show. We'll still do some games for Max South Television. I like to do that just to get out and to see some teams play, but I really enjoy the scoreboard show. So kind of working some things out there. And then we've got a ton of stuff coming for football season this year. I just booked my flight to Winston-Salem, North Carolina for the Wake Forest game. The rest of the games I'm going to probably try to drive to, but that one was about 12 and a half hours from my house. I'm going to fly there. And then the rest of the places we'll drive to, we'll cover all of them. We'll be at every game this year, home and away. So it's going to be a fantastic year for the network, and excited about all the sponsors that have jumped on, and really going to have a lot of fun this year.
Yeah, you guys are killing it though. The Red and Blue Crew podcast. I appreciate that and listen to that. That's good stuff. You and David do.
I appreciate that, and as always, appreciate the opportunity to join you.
No problem at all. And we'll see you soon, buddy.